it for their sake, to do it for their sake, thereby helping yourself. That's the purity that we talk about. And love, absolute love, well, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Well, I'm the guy that never cared for the rights, the wishes, or the privileges of other people. I just couldn't do it. Give you an example of where I was at in those days. I, at one time, did not want women in our fellowship. I felt they'd be a distraction. To my eternal shame, I felt that way. It was only after a conversation with Bill Wilson, where every time I used the word woman, he just said, no, say alcoholic. Every time I'd use the word woman, he'd say, no, say alcoholic. That I finally began to realize how wrong I was. But that's in that absolute love. I couldn't extend my love to that extent. And I think today, and I mean this sincerely, that most of the spirituality in our program comes from the women in it. I'll give you an example of that. We had a gal come down from Woodstock, Illinois, to come to one of our meetings. She was visiting somebody in time, and she was part of the Woodstock group up there, and she shared, and I was really taken with something that she said at the end of the meeting. She's a very beautiful girl. She said something that I was so impressed. I asked her to write it down for me, and she wrote it down, and I've kept it ever since. And this will say more than what I said before in summing up the spirituality of these gals. She just said simply, being sober for me now means giving up my conceptions of what life should be like and embracing the life that shows up. That life is totally different than it was, more vibrant and totally unpredictable. That unpredictability requires that I live in the present, trusting in the power that is propelling me toward my goal. I firmly believe that everybody that is ever born or will be born have two things in common, two things that they want more than anything else. One is, how do I put it, happiness. The other is peace of mind. Happiness and peace of mind. That's what we all want. You can call it serenity if you want, you know. I like to think of it as imperturbability. Let nothing perturb us. Let nothing bother us. That's a hard place to get to, it really is. But using the absolutes that I just mentioned, that'd be an important part of getting there. The absolute of love and the absolute of purity. But I was stuck. I couldn't love. That was my life. But then I realized I could practice love. Just practice it. Whenever I got a chance, practice doing the loving thing. And I began to do that. And it began to get easier. The love began to grow. Just by practicing, like we do the steps. Just to practice the steps. Not be absolute. Try to be absolute. And fail. And therefore bringing myself closer to my higher power. You know, it's been written that God said, I am. Not I was, or I'm going to be. I am. I'm in the moment. And to practice that love, I have to, as this young girl said, I have to get into the moment. I have to take life as being very unpredictable. Whatever comes my way, to take it. Let nothing perturb me. Let nothing throw me. It's not an easy job, you know. It isn't simple. But it can be done. Now I'm getting a little too serious here, so let me lighten it up a bit, you know. These last 15 years have been really great. Absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for $1 million. It's been wonderful. Brought me closer to my family, brought me closer to my patients, brought me closer to my friends in and out of AA. But you know, to be honest, I haven't missed a day without thinking of a drink. I always envied Bill. Bill, he had the obsession leave him right away. Me, it's always there. And every once in a while I can say to myself, hey pal, you got this drinking pretty much under control. Why you can have a little double of scotch. Oh, I love scotch. Who's going to know? You got this pretty well. As soon as I begin to thinking about that, whoa pal, wait a minute big boy. You better get down to the ward. You better go talk to the boys. We have this sweetheart of a deal down at St. Thomas's Hospital. Sister Ignatius got a ward for us. We keep 6 guys and a couple, 2 or 3 tucked around the place somewhere. And I get down there and I begin to talk to these guys, and whatever that thought, that leaves me. It leaves me, and that's important. A drunk for a drink, it works all the time. It's unbelievable. But I had to be honest and tell you that it never left me. It's a daily reprieve, like they say. With Anne's passing and my own ill health, these last couple of years have been pretty tough, and I've been fairly well isolated, left to myself, alone. A lot of time to think, to make some sense out of a muddled, disordered life. And I began to come to some conclusions, and the way I do it is through prayer and reflection, through prayer and meditation. And I want to share these with you before you go. I realize that when I talked to you before I began this, that you're having a hard time with this God stuff that we find so easy to talk about in AA. So I want to make a deal with you. I don't do it that often, but if you're having a problem developing your own higher power, borrow mine. I'll lend you my God. Tomorrow morning when you got a chance and nobody's looking, you don't want to get caught doing it, Just say, I was ever helping that Smith fellow, would you please help me? And if I'm not good enough for you, you can borrow your group up in Buffalo, you can borrow their God. Whoever is helping those fellows at that AA meeting, help me. And I think after a while you might begin to develop some consciousness and be able to grab a hold of your own higher power. But I'll lend you mine. You're welcome to it. But please understand that I'll still continue to use them myself, but we won't talk about that right now. But anyway, I've begun to come to some thoughts, and I'd like to share them with you before I leave, because they're my reflections. If you want one of your own or some of your own, you've got to do the same thing. Seek through prayer and meditation to improve your conscious contact with your higher power. That's one of the preeminent steps in our program. It's a daily step. It's something that you do all the time. If you can do that, you'll come to your own conclusion. But let me read them to you, because I think you'll get an idea of what happens to you after you're all in the program, where you're at that point where nothing is perturbing you, where you have time to think. And though I've been ill, I think I've come to some pretty good conclusions about myself. And I hope you can identify with what I have to say. I've come to believe that I am indeed made in the image of God. It was a hard thing for me to figure out for a long time. What does it mean by the image of God, That image is at the very center of my being, and it resides inside the smallest atom or particle of atom that was my beginning. To me it's instancy, an immediateness that was and is forever, a spark, a divine spark, or better yet, call it Thompson's majestic instancy. If you're familiar with the Hound of Heaven, where the hound has that majestic instancy, that urgency is a better word, that it places me in the constant state of now, or the immediateness that young girl mentioned in her letter, her talk here in Akron. I also think of it as love without condition, most often encouraged, most often unrecognized by me, but always recognized by God. It was formed by God's idea of me, and it's eternally good. It is a piece of God, and it resembles Him.